All right, welcome back to New Dawn. Thank you so much for staying with us here on the program. Of course, we do want to get into what you're waking up to as far as the dailies are concerned. And yes, but before we do that, let me just introduce my panel here. I do have next to me is Brenda Ongalo, who is an advocate and Secretary General, United Green Movement Party. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Brian.
You're having a wonderful morning.
I am.
Constitutional moment in the country. What's your take?
We should not be discussing this.
Okay.
At this point.
All right. Honorable Nabina Buera, who is the Member of Parliament Lugari. Hello. Hi. How are you, sir?
Yeah, we are good to go. We thank God we've seen another day. And I'm happy to see Brenda here. I hope she will recruit me to Green Party.
Are you looking forward to leaving your party?
No, if you know, this issue about parties is whether somebody is offering a new thinking. The country maybe requires a new thinking. I don't know.
Okay.
As we move forward, you will see what's going to happen.
All right. And of course, Wakili Steve Mbugua, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. And
you've had a busy week in the courts, or it's still not have started yet?
There have been so many activities going on, but personally, I wasn't actively involved in what was going on Friday, as we have been pursuing other matters, which we think are of more national importance.
Of course. All right, there's quite a lot of happenings in the country here, and of course we'll be seeking your insights on this to try and get to understand from the political front all the way to the judicial process that you're experiencing right now, what you're calling, what could be the grand divorce. I don't know if it's already finalized, this particular divorce between the head of state and his deputy, but yeah, moments like this. Right, I do want us to take a look at what's happening on the dailies, and I do want us to start with the People Daily. Of course, the headline here on the People Daily says, inside Ruto's plot to replace Gachagua. Now, Bleak Future plans afoot to convene a special house sitting as early as Friday to consider Deputy President's successor in the likely event the Senate finds him guilty and endorses his impeachment. This is a story on page 5 of the People Daily. Of course, let me just take you there so that we get to see what you're waking up to and what the papers are saying as far as the impeachment and replacement of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is concerned. 4 faces there. We have Kithure Kindiki, Musalia Mudavadi, Irungu Kang'ata, and Anne Waiguru, some of the faces that have been considered for the possible replacement of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Of course, we've been able to see different opinion polls, putting Kithure Kindiki first as the most what we'll call, quote-unquote, preferred replacement of the DP. And of course, Anne Waiguru coming there with a little bit of a tie with Musalia Mudavadi, then Irungu Kang'ata. There are other considerations. We were able to see Kimani Ichung'wah, the likes of Ndindi Nyoro, and also just away from Mount Kenya and other regions, of course, different considerations, including the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Of course, that particular Infotrack poll had 2% for Raila Odinga, people that thought Odinga could actually be considered for this particular position. This is a story on page 5 of the People Daily. President William Ruto allies are planning to install a new deputy president as soon as Saturday if the Senate upholds the National Assembly's decision to impeach the incumbent, that is Rigathi Gachagua. Now listen to this. You see, 20th of this particular month, that is the Sunday, we are going to be celebrating Mashujaa Day. So I don't know how this is going to pan out, but of course we'll be having this conversation here to try and get to understand why this replacement is this quick. Of course, the Deputy President has also moved to court to stop this, and we'll be getting to hear that today as the courts make that decision for that installation. Now, another story making headlines on the People Daily is principals raise cash fears over KCSE exams. Of course, a story on page 4 of the People Daily, and African to the core, a story on page 16. All right, another story making headlines on the People Daily. Kenyan man jailed for 40 years in US for assaulting his son. This is a story on page 2 of this particular newspaper. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Standard newspaper. Now, Standard newspaper says 47:59:59. Clock ticks to final decision. Of course, 48 hours until we know the fate of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. These 2 days will be very crucial for this country and, of course, go down in history as the days that those have spirited defense to try and keep him in office, and also a National Assembly that was eager to put up a fight to see that he is impeached. Now, in the next 48 hours, the Deputy President will engage in a fight for his political life that rose from a one-term MP to the second highest seat in the land is no mean feat. However, he faces a permanent ban from public service should he face senators and fail to convince them to drop his impeachment. New evidence indicates the National Assembly will go for his jugular, with friends standing 4 hours after the courts okayed the process. There's a story on page 4, 5, 6 and 7 of the Standard. Now, the events today is the National Assembly, MPs and lawyers will prosecute their case against the Deputy President. They will call witnesses and rebut claims of his defense. Tomorrow, the Deputy President and his team will defend their case, after which the senators will vote to uphold or throw out the impeachment. What are the hurdles? Well, Justice Chacha Mwita yesterday refused to halt the process. However, today morning, a three-judge bench will pronounce itself on the same. An alleged buyer of one of the properties has thrown a spanner in the works, swearing the property was bought on Gachagwa's behalf. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is Kenyans in the dark over cost of power after Adani deal. Consumers and manufacturers will have to wait longer to learn the fate of their electricity bills following the controversial 9 billion power transmission deal signed with Adani this week. National, we also have why Devani could walk in Triton case. The DPP has applied to the courts to drop the Triton case on grounds that he cannot find witnesses. Should the courts agree with him, the 7.6 billion corruption case will be buried in spite of its heavy toll on Kenyans. A story on page 8 will be getting into the details of that. And also, ministry pledges to settle NHIF debts. A story on page 3. And delegates query Raila on Ruto ties. This is a story on page 9 of the Standard. Let's just, it says here, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga was put to task to explain the relationship between the ODM and the Kenya Kwanza government. Raila denied that the party had entered into any political marriage with President William Ruto rather. Instead, Raila said there was need for more dialogue on constitutional reforms and some of the issues that were raised by the youth when they demonstrated. Now, he was responding to questions from delegates who sought clarity on the party's decision to have 5 top officials join Ruto's cabinet. Of course, a story on page 9 of the Standard. Let's also take a look at what's happening on the Daily Nation. The fight for his life, a trial, a defiant Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua faces an uphill battle for survival in the Senate today, even as a 3-judge bench appointed by the Chief Justice rules on his last-ditch bid to stop senators from proceeding with the impeachment case against him. Will his efforts bear fruit, or will it be too little, too late for the DP? A story on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation. Justice Chacha Mwita ruled that even though the court had the jurisdiction to determine the petition, Parliament ought to be allowed to run its course. There should be a delicate balance in respective mandates of different arms of government. Courts should strive to achieve the balance and respect what Parliament is constitutionally required to discharge. The 3-judge bench, of course, is Justice Eric Ogola, who is the presiding judge, Justice Anthony Mrima, and Lady Justice Frida Mugambi. All right, lawmakers seek the extension of boundary review timelines of the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee wants Article 89 of the Constitution amended in order to empower Parliament to extend the period of reviewing names and boundaries of constituencies. Another story making headlines, of course, what we've been able to take a look on the Standard is court rejects DPP's bid to withdraw 7.6 billion graft case against Devani. A story on page 2. And a state will foot 30 billion bill NHIF OS hospitals. This is a story on page 10. And of course, university don't staff to strike over pay. A story on the back page of the Daily Nation. Right? Now we want to get into this particular conversation, but I want us to start with, before we get into what is shaping the conversation today in the country, let's take a look at what's happening as far as the courts are concerned on the issue of Devani. The newspaper is reporting that the DPP has applied to the courts to drop the Triton case on grounds that he cannot find witnesses. Should the courts agree with him, it's a 7.6 billion, and of course that has been running for close to 2 decades, since 2008. I don't know. Let me start with you. What do you make of this first?
The fight against draft in our country faces many hurdles.
Okay.
And part of it, I'd say, are very structural, because this is a case that has been going on, and given the amounts, like the figures involved and the time taken with it, it is such a waste that such cases fail on basics of how did the case start, because they ought to have been sufficient evidence to prosecute the matter. So I think that is the biggest blow that we will have should the DPP move ahead and withdraw the case, because I think we have gotten to a point as a country where we throw about numbers and do not give it the seriousness. We are talking about 7.6 billion. What can 7.6 billion do for this country? Okay. If this 7.6 billion is maybe injected into the education sector, what can it do? It is such an unfortunate morning that we are talking about the matter being withdrawn, or about to be withdrawn, because we do not have, the DPP cannot find witnesses because they claim some are uncooperative, unavailable, others are dead. Okay. I think we really need to be sure that we want to fight graft, because fighting graft does not end at arresting and charging. Okay.
Nabil, let me come to you. The war on graft in this country, you know, money is lost. We see arrests being made, people presented to court, and, you know, investigations being done here and there. Then at some extent, it's like you have hope, then there's none. What do you make of this? This is 7.6 billion Kenya shillings. Of course, 2008, this guy was on the run, came back into the country, was arrested, you know, charged, but now we seem to be like, okay, we don't have enough evidence to be able to continue with this particular case. It is time to drop it. What do you make of the DPPs as far as this is concerned?
First of all, 7.6 billion, at the time it got lost, that is 15.8 billion today. 15.8 billion today is the amount of money I'll need to get back students on the new funding model. I want us to understand these figures. Yeah. Now, let me tell you something seriously wrong with our system. The drafters of this constitution had one assumption that has worked against us. They believed that the implementers of the constitution will have common good in their mind. Who are the critical implementers of the constitution? The three arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. I'm sorry to speak and say this, that it has not happened that they have common good. Fact. To fight corruption, you need political goodwill. That is all. And I will want to explain to you the issue of political goodwill from a different perspective from what people tell you. The first thing in the political goodwill is the people the executive nominate to positions that relate to fighting corruption. The DPP, the EACC chair, the AG. Those are critical institutions in the country. Now, if the process of getting these people is political mired, for God's sake, it will deliver politics. What we are seeing since the Kenya Kwanza government came to power, on this, we have withdrawn almost all cases on graft. Okay. Okay?
So what does that speak to the war on graft in the country, despite the
It
government
is lost. It's lost. I'm sorry, it's lost. We have politicized the process. Now, one will want to sympathize with the DPP. I mean, the witnesses, some may have died. Look at the time this man was arrested. Some may be very ill, unable to attend.
Okay.
Some may have, they can't even remember. They can't even remember the case. Okay? And given that we have a weak system of witness protection, yeah? Mm-hmm. And a man like Davani, who still, the money was not confiscated, you know,
Yeah.
he still has the money and is around us. He can facilitate these people even to disappear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me bring you, Steve. You've been in the corridors of justice. What does it take to have a strong case, you know, on issues to do with graft that you can be able to see it all the way through to, you know, prosecution?
I think first and foremost, joining issues with my colleague, and also mention that the biggest challenge we have as a country is how the willingness to deal with these matters. And I'm saying this because how long has Devani been away?
Okay.
16 years, and I can assure you, you can see the willingness of the state machineries to take action, to look for this person, whenever they're even signing these treaties and even engaging with these international communities. And they know even where Devani has been all this time. Not that he was somewhere he couldn't be traced. They knew the country where he was. Not that a trial started in that country to extradite him and took long. No. Deliberate delays, deliberate measures to ensure that this doesn't happen. How much was it lost in the process? 7.6 billion Kenya shilling. It just cost 3 billion to build a referral hospital. So these are, even if you were to work with 7.3 billion, these are 2 cancer centers in this country. That was lost with Davani, and right now he's in a chance of walking out scot-free and start investing again in this country. And it's not just the only case.
And stealing more.
Yeah, we have so many other cases of this nature. And we go back to, let's say from even 1995, we had a scandal, nothing became out of it. In the year 2003, there was another scandal. We saw a lot of hula barus. Nothing came out of it.
Nabi mentioned something to do with how we get to appoint, you know, people that get to lead these institutions that are supposed to be fighting corruption. What will be the best way to go about it, if at all we are very serious with the war on graft, so that we don't go with that particular notion that this law is lost? Because we still have a country to run, we still have a country to live in, and we still have resources to protect.
I think the main thing comes with how do these people get the jobs. And for as long as the job is political, it's a political appointment, let us appoint you to reward you for something or give us an appointee on this particular job. Therefore, you are under the control and the whims of particular persons in the government or in the state house. There's no way you can independently deliver on these things. And I think that is where you find that most of the people who have been occupying these offices, especially the office of the DPP and the EACC, have been able to deliver, because every single time you can see drastic actions being taken. I think I remember sometime Professor Lumumba had started taking some people to court, and immediately his office was disbanded. So you can see that people don't like these actions. The moment you start becoming a bit more active in taking these matters into, or prosecuting these persons, you find that the political class crack a whip on you. And I think it's time we empower the independence of these institutions, that this institution outlives the political class. These institutions can be there even when the political class is not there, that they can arrest a president, a former president, have them charged in court, they get convicted, and they're taken to these prisons. And probably even that is the time now our politicians will also consider making our prisons better, because they're going to be clients in those particular prisons.
When will that be, Brenda? How long should we give when it comes to, you know, for this war to actually get to see the light of day? Where exactly do we start? Because you see, it seems like we are losing the battle, and they seem to be resolved, you know, taking a seat and saying, okay, that is done.
There is hope. There is hope because the reason I say there is hope is in as much as fine these offices are occupied by, they serve political purposes, but we have gotten to a point where Kenyans have started realizing their power.
Okay.
Kenyans have started, and this power comes from the information. Because initially, the song has been, we want to see you arrest big fish.
Okay.
But then now, they started arresting the big fish, but dropping the cases eventually after some time. So the reason I insist we do have...
most of them actually, there's a time that they were being arrested on
yeah,
Friday.
the Kamata Friday. And
they get to spend some, you know, the weekend in a cell. So that...
so that the public is appeased and they say, oh, we saw the big fish also being arrested. But now it does not stop there. The fact that Kenyans now are armed with this information and they know that we can demand for better. It is the only hope that we have because it is Kenyans who are going to demand that you allow these offices to work. The vetting, the public participation that has been lacking. I mean, Kenyans are now empowered to a point they will question the credentials of whoever is being appointed. And the moment you have been appointed, we are seeing Kenyans putting public officers to task to perform what they are supposed to perform by virtue of their offices and also just to uphold the Chapter 6 generally.
All right.
Yeah, so there is hope, a lot of it.
You have something to add before I take a break?
A problem with the Brenda's assertion. Brenda, I really, the case we are just still dealing with, the one that has proceeded to Senate, has taught me a lot of things, and I want to share with you here. Actually, the problem in Kenya is the human being called voter.
Voter. That is the Kenyan person.
Because Brenda is arguing here, and they will still bring thieves and vote for them. No, please, let's be sincere with each other.
They say leaders represent the
yes, let's be sincere with each other. The person that needs to change his mindset is a voter.
Okay.
And I want to show you this. If you read this paper, and you are very selective on your things, there are many serious issues on this that needed to take the light. But you know, you picked the political things that work on emotions. Okay. That's the first problem. The Kenyan voter must desist from being emotional. Right? Because emotional voting gives us an executive and a legislature that is not attuned to the things we are saying. Just listen.
All right.
I just want to qualify my statement.
Okay.
You heard of this story, Kufa Makanga,
Kufa Dereva.
Now, you don't want to deal with this one which has been brought before you. You are bringing in another issue to complicate it. That means we are not ready.
Okay.
And secondly,
you come back and finish.
No, more important here. Why is this thing complicated? Even the Gen Z, who told me they are tribalists, they are not tribalists.
Okay, we'll come back and talk about that. We do want to take a short break here on New Dawn. Of course, continue engaging us on our socials on the conversation we're having this morning on what is shaping the agenda, or rather the conversation in the country, and that is Gachagwa's fate at the Senate. When we come back, we'll be taking a look into that and what happened in the National Assembly, what we expect in the Senate, and also what we've been able to experience in the corridors of justice. Don't go too far. We will be back in a few.